Ciao everyone and welcome back to a new episode of Learn Italian 0 to Hero. In the previous videos, we learned about elision and apocope or truncation, and we noticed how easy it is to mix them up. So, as promised, I'm about to share some tips and tricks on how to tell them apart. Now, let's be honest, theory is important in everything, but we all know that the real question everyone is asking is, when do I have to put the damn apostrophe? First, the general rule is elision wants the apostrophe, while the apocope does not. In other words, is that an elision? Put the apostrophe. Is that an apocope? No apostrophe. There are only 9 words that want the apostrophe even if they are truncated and not elided. And this leads us to the second trick. Both elision and apocope involve the suppression of the final part of a word. However, while the elision is limited to the final vowel, the apocope can involve a vowel, a consonant, and even an entire syllable. Simply put, we need to ask ourselves, what part of the word is suppressed? If the answer is only the last vowel, then it's an elision. So we should put the apostrophe. But if the answer is other than the last vowel, then it's an apocope. So we shall not put the apostrophe. For example, let's take the word bello. If I say bell'esempio che dai, what a great example you set, usually said ironically, I'm using the elided form of bello because only the final O is suppressed. However, if I say oggi c'è bel tempo, today it's nice weather, I'm using the truncated form of bello, since the whole last syllable is suppressed. But Silvia, you told me that also the apocope can suppress just one vowel. Good point, learner. You are indeed very right. So, how can we tell an elision from an apocope when the only suppressed part of the word is a vowel? This leads us to our third trick. Both elision and apocope can involve the suppression of the final vowel. However, the elision occurs only when the following word starts with a vowel too. So, we need to ask ourselves, is the following word starting with a consonant? If the answer is yes, then it's an apocope, so we shall avoid the apostrophe. For example, in the sentence bell'esempio che dai, bello requires the apostrophe because esempio begins with a vowel. Meanwhile, in oggi c'è bel tempo, bello avoids the apostrophe because tempo begins with a consonant. But Silvia, then why do we have truncation like qual è, where only a vowel is suppressed and the following word begins with a vowel too? How can I tell that's an apocope and not an elision? Good question. This leads to our fourth and final trick. Does the word have a truncated form? If the answer is yes, then we have once again an apocope. But if the answer is no, then it's an elision, and we can finally put our beloved apostrophe in its rightful place. For example, why do I write un amico, a friend masculine, without the apostrophe, but I write un'amica, a friend feminine, with the apostrophe? Because while the masculine indefinite article uno has a truncated form, the feminine indefinite article una does not have a truncated form. In conclusion, let's recap the steps one last time to understand if you should or should not put the apostrophe. Step 1. What part of the word is suppressed? If it's a consonant or an entire syllable, we are facing an apocope, so no apostrophe. However, if it's a vowel, it can be both an apocope or an elision. So, step 2. We have to check if the following word begins with a consonant or a vowel. If the following word begins with a consonant, we are facing once again an apocope. However, if it begins with a vowel, it can be again both an apocope or an elision. So, step 3. We need to ask ourselves, does the word have a truncated form? If the answer is yes, then it's an apocope. But if the answer is no, then it's an elision, and we can finally put the apostrophe. Now, I perfectly understand the difficulty of these rules. So, if you have any doubts or further tricks and tips that helped you, don't forget to share them in the comments. Grazie for watching and
Arrivederci.